The following is a list of some of my favorite video games. Super Mario All-Stars. Super Mario All-Stars is a collection of 4 great games: Super Mario Bros., The Lost Levels, Super Mario Bros. 2, and Super Mario Bros. 3. Super Mario Bros. Is perhaps the very first great platformer. It's very fun to play and has great music. The Lost Levels is Super Mario Bros. 2 as it was released in Japan. Super Mario Bros. 2 is a very original game which features both horizontal and vertical gameplay. Super Mario Bros. 3 is perhaps the greatest game in the series. It truly is a masterpiece. On all 4 games, when you get a game over, you are given 3 options: continue, save and continue, and save and quit. Super Mario RPG. Super Mario RPG was the first Japanese role-playing game, JRPG, that I ever played. For the first time, I was exposed to the strategy of chess-like turn-based battles and engrossed in a wonderful story. The music is very memorable and generates emotional resonance. Perhaps because of this game, the JRPG has become my favorite genre. The Legend of Dragoon. The Legend of Dragoon was the first RPG I ever played, after Super Mario RPG. It was on the PlayStation. It's a first-party game developed by Sony. As I began replaying the game for this review, I remembered playing the game for the first time. I felt happy. As such, The Legend of Dragoon is a personal favorite of mine. The story of The Legend of Dragoon begins with the protagonist, Dart, rescuing his girlfriend from prison. However, after he rescues her, the story just begins. The dialogue in the game really pulls me into the story. The interactions between the characters is very fun to read as well. The game has great character development as every character's backstory is explored. The music in the game really enhances the narrative. For example, emphatic music plays when Dart decides to join his friend on a quest to end the war. Also, sad piano music plays when the party discovers the bodies of many soldiers killed by poison. In addition, the battle theme for the game is upbeat and really helps enhance the battles. The battle system is challenging and fun. The battles are truly turn-based and utilizes the addition system. For additions, the player must input a sequence of precise button commands with perfect timing. When any specific addition is successfully performed 20 times, it increases the effectiveness of that attack. Every character has a unique set of additions, and mastering them is a lot of fun. The Legend of Dragoon has great replayability, as the story is fun to read more than once. Also, if doing multiple playthroughs, you can play with different characters in your party and master new additions. It truly is a PlayStation classic. Final Fantasy IV. Final Fantasy IV has a character-driven story. In the game, each character has a character class such as Dark Knight, Paladin, Black Mage, or White Mage. The characters' classes influence how the characters are described in the story. It also determines their role in the world. The protagonist of the game is a Dark Knight. He became one to please his king. After killing innocent people to obtain crystals by the king's orders, he begins to question his king. However, he is faced with an internal moral dilemma, as this is the man who raised him. However, during the game, the protagonist decides to change and atone for his wrongdoings. He goes on a quest to become a paladin, defeat evil, and save the world. Final Fantasy IV has a great battle system. It features the Active Time Battle, ATB, system. During battle, there is an ATB gauge for each character, each filling up over time. Once an ATB gauge is filled for a character, that character is allowed to take an action. For example, the character can do things such as attack, use magic, or summon. The starting point of the ATB gauge is random for each character. As such, you never know which of your characters will be enabled to take an action first. As a result, the battle system requires quick thinking. In the game, the battles begin with 2 characters in your party. However, as the game progresses, you can have a party of up to 4 characters. The ATB system with that many characters is a lot of fun. The gameplay really enhances the narrative in this game. For example, while our heroes are on their journey, the trail to their next destination is blocked by thick ice. A character, Rydia, is a summoner and can cast spells such as ice and lightning, but not fire. This is because her village burned down and she hates fire. However, her friends implore her to cast a spell, as she is the only one that can melt the ice. She triumphantly casts a spell, melting the ice, and learns the spell Fire. She can then cast fire in battle. This is just one example of how the gameplay enhances the narrative in this game. The music for the game is astounding. The beautiful arpeggio for the title theme makes me happy. The upbeat music for the boss battles is one of my favorite songs in the entire series. All the music is phenomenal. The game is a masterpiece. Final Fantasy VII. I love the story of Final Fantasy VII. I really like the characters in the game. I enjoy learning more about them. The protagonist's past is fascinating. In addition, every playable character's backstory is explored. Each of these stories moves me. For examples, one of the characters' backstories brings me to tears. The overarching story surprises and elicits powerful emotions. The resolution of the protagonist's character arc is very satisfying and gives me chills. Part of what makes the storytelling so powerful is the music. The music really enhances the narrative. I enjoy the music throughout the entire game. Every time I hear the music in the game, it takes me to a beautiful place. For example, the music for the final boss is phenomenal and has an epic feel to it. The battle system is great and features the Materia system. Materia are objects of condensed energy which imbue the user with magical abilities. This includes spells such as fire, ice, and lightning. This happens when materia is placed into weapons and armor. In addition, the materia obtained in the game often coincides with the story. For example, shortly after the protagonist agrees to be a girl character's bodyguard, a materia called cover can be obtained. This materia allows the user to protect another character from taking damage in battle. This is a great example of the gameplay enhancing the narrative. The materia system makes the characters very customizable. Any character can use any materia. For example, there is a materia which can restore life force with a spell called Cure. Any character can use Cure when it is placed into that character's weapons or armor. This system allows the player to think and implement their strategy with any character they choose. I really enjoy the puzzle solving in the game. In an early part of the game, the Shinra building, there are lots of puzzles to solve. By solving these puzzles, you can obtain keys or other valuable items. For example, there is a puzzle I really enjoy in the Shinra library. Solving that puzzle is fun. However, the books in the library also provide enriching information, which helps build the world of the game. Even in the puzzle solving, the developers of the game are telling a story. The game is a lot of fun. It's a masterpiece. Final Fantasy IX. Final Fantasy IX has a wonderful story. I love the characters in the game. I enjoy learning more about them. The dialogue in the game is very well written. The interactions between the characters are very fun to read. In addition, the game utilizes cinematics as a part of the storytelling. The cinematics are exciting and breathtaking. In Final Fantasy IX, it is the equipment which imbues the characters with abilities. For example, the Black Mage has a staff. When equipped, it allows him to cast fire spells. After he gains enough ability points in battle, he can cast fire even when the staff is not equipped. Later, he obtains other staffs which enable him to cast other spells, such as ice and lightning. Every character in the game has unique equipment which grants them abilities only they can possess. The equipment the characters use and the abilities they teach enhances the narrative. For example, the protagonist is a bandit who uses daggers. He can obtain a dagger which increases his success rate at stealing an item in battle. This helps develop his character as a bandit. It is an example of telling the story through the gameplay, such as the battles. The battle system is composed of strategic turn-based battles. The battles are a lot of fun. Each playable character has a unique set of abilities. With that comes unique strengths and weaknesses. In battle, one must strategically utilize the character's strengths to be successful in combat. For example, one character may have a lot of physical strength, making their melee attacks with a sword effective. Another character may lack physical strength, but possess strong magical abilities. Such a character may be able to utilize offensive magic, such as a fire spell. Yet another character may be able to restore the party's health with a spell called Cure. Efficiently using each character's strength and working together as a team is essential in this turn-based game. The music in the game is sensational. I particularly enjoy the piano playing in the game. The music sets the tone for the different characters in the game as well. For example, ominous music plays when the villain of the story is in a scene of the game. It's a great game. It is very fun to play. Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy was easily my favorite video game franchise for a long time. Final Fantasy X is my favorite game in the series. Perhaps this is because it has my favorite story and battle system. In addition, the music, puzzle solving, and visual design of the game is outstanding. Final Fantasy X has a very well told story with a lot of depth. The pacing of the telling of the story is excellent. The story is enjoyable throughout the entire game, and it has an ending which moves me to tears. In addition, there is brilliant foreshadowing throughout the entire game. This makes it meaningful to play the game more than once. In this story, the protagonist helps guard a character named Yuna as she goes on a pilgrimage. The battle system consists of chess-like turn-based battles. Each playable character starts with a unique set of abilities in battle. For example, the protagonist is fast and can attack nimble monsters. Another character, Wakka, has a ranged weapon which can attack flying monsters and enemies in the distance. Yet another character, Lulu, can use magic to attack with fire, ice, lightning, or water. There are several other playable characters with different abilities which join you on your journey. In battle, you can have 3 members in your active party. However, the game allows you to switch members during battle. This is where much of the strategy of the battles comes into play. For example, there could be a battle with a nimble monster, a flying monster, and a monster weak to lightning. The game is to have the right members in your active party and have the correct member attack the right enemy. In addition, there are a large number of challenging boss battles. These boss battles require thought and strategy in order for the player to win. The music throughout the entire game is phenomenal. The piano playing at the introduction warms my heart. The rock music playing during the final boss battle excites me. The music really elicits an emotional response. It enhances the entire gameplay experience. The puzzle solving is one of my favorite parts of the game. The puzzles all involve spheres. The spheres act as keys which open new paths. You can only carry one sphere at a time. The puzzles start relatively simple and get increasingly more complex as you progress through the game. Solving the puzzles is a lot of fun. In addition, the game has remarkable visuals, even by today's standards. It's a great game. Resident Evil. I really enjoy the story of Resident Evil. It contains brilliant cinematics which are an important part of the telling of the story. Some of the cinematics are scary. They really help set the tone of the game. This game is scary. I first played the game when I was a child. When we were playing the game, I saw a scary cinematic in the beginning of the story. I remembered how I felt when I first played the game. It was scary and exciting. The written information throughout the game really helps tell the story as well. It helps build the world of the game. The written information includes things such as diary entries. The diary entries are very well written. They are also very fun to read. I enjoyed reading them so much, it inspired me to write a journal of my own. You can choose from one of 2 characters to play as, Chris or Jill. The experience in the game is different depending on who you play as. For example, there is a puzzle involving a shotgun. In the game, a shotgun is placed such that it depresses some levers. When Chris removes the shotgun, it triggers a booby trap which causes the ceiling to fall, slowly crushing him. To solve the puzzle, Chris must obtain a broken shotgun. He can then remove the shotgun and replace it with the broken shotgun. This allows him to leave the room with the shotgun. However, Jill does not necessarily need to do this to get the shotgun. When Jill is in the same position, another character, Barry, comes to rescue her. He pulls her out of the room while the ceiling is coming down. Barry saves her from becoming a Jill sandwich. This is an example of how the game is different depending on who you play as. The game is a personal favorite of mine. Resident Evil 4. I love Resident Evil 4. I think the best way to convey that is to express how I feel when I'm playing the game. I feel scared, yet excited. For example, when playing the beginning of the game, I was attacked by a large number of enemies at once. It was then that I noticed my hands were cold. My hands were cold because I was scared, but at the same time I was feeling exhilarated. That is how I feel when I play Resident Evil 4. I have fun. Resident Evil 4 is not an easy game, but it is also very rewarding. In Resident Evil 4, you need to implement strategy in order to succeed. For example, at the beginning of the game, you have a handgun and a knife. There are many enemies in the game. You may run out of ammunition if you try to dispose of them all with your handgun. A strategy could be to shoot an enemy in the leg, dropping them to the ground. Then the knife could be used to finish them off. Also, much of the time a good strategy is simply to run. The game is not to vanquish all your foes. The game is to survive. I really enjoy the story of Resident Evil 4. The story is told through cinematic scenes and written information scattered throughout the game. The cinematics are visually compelling and contain memorable dialogue. Sometimes the cinematics are even interactive. The written information in the game is fascinating to read. For example, through them, you learn that the enemies in Resident Evil 4 are not zombies. Rather, they are people who are victims of parasites. These parasites take hold of the host nervous system and manipulate their behavior. Your job is to rescue the president's daughter, who's being held captive by such beings. Resident Evil 4 contains many memorable boss battles. I'll give just a couple examples. A challenging but fun boss battle is La Criatura del Lago, a large aquatic creature whom you must defeat in order to cross a lake. Another boss battle has a satisfying callback to an earlier part of the story. In the beginning of the game, there is a dog ensnared in a bear trap. If you help him, then later in the game he risks his life to help you against El Gigante, an enormous and powerful enemy. In the game, music is utilized in a way which really enhances the gameplay experience. For instance, there is no music playing when exploring an area. However, when spotted by enemies, alarming music plays. The music creates a sense of urgency to take an action. That action could be to run or attack an enemy. However, after those enemies have been neutralized, the music stops. The absence of music creates a sense that it is safer to explore the area again. The game is nothing short of a masterpiece. It is one of my favorite games of all time.
Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney.
Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy is a collection of visual novels published by Capcom. The writing in the games is very good. The characters are so well written that, when playing later installments, you're happy to see them from previous games. You play as a defense attorney named Phoenix Wright. Something that makes these games stand out is that they are funny. They have things like a parrot or a ventriloquist dummy as a witness. The gameplay consists of investigations and trials. During the investigations, you examine items to gather information and evidence. These can be used in the trial. To do this, you control a magnifying glass, which allows you to click on things. When you click on a certain object, it gives you more information about that object to read about. You investigate and learn more by reading. In addition, you talk to various people such as a detective or witness who may appear in the trial. In the trials, you read the witness testimony and do a cross-examination. During the cross-examination, you can press the witness to get more information. Additionally, you can present evidence and perhaps point out a contradiction in a witness's testimony. There are other fun elements of the gameplay with the trials as well. An example of gameplay involving a trial I found particularly memorable involves a case file. For the sake of presenting evidence, the case file gets reduced to 3 pages. There is a page summarizing the case, another page describing the victim, and yet another page describing the suspect. In a trial, Phoenix presents the case file as evidence to support his claim. The prosecuting attorney states that it is a large case file and demands he specify which page the proof is on. Options are then provided to state which page contains the proof. This is a fun part of the game because you need to read, then point out where in the provided information the proof lies. This is a specific example of how the gameplay during the trials is a lot of fun. The music in the game, and the absence of music at times, really enhances the story and visuals. For example, in a trial, Phoenix presents some evidence and the music stops. Then Phoenix makes a statement with a dramatic reveal. This is followed by different upbeat music. The music really enhances the dramatic reveal. The music also complements the visual of the judge's wide-eyed expression after seeing the evidence and hearing Phoenix speak. This is an example of how the music really enhances the story and makes the dialogue very fun to read. I feel excited every time I play the game. It's a great game and it's very fun to read.
Paper Mario.
Paper Mario 64 is a great game that followed Super Mario RPG. In the game, the dialogue is very fun to read. The music and visuals really complement the dialogue as well. In addition, a playable character has an ability called Tattle, which allows you to read about the enemies. In the battles, I find myself doing this as soon as I get the chance. The battles in the game are turn-based. Much of the strategy comes from deciding who will attack and which order the turns should occur. There are no random encounters in the game, but I find myself clearing all the enemies in an area before moving onward. The puzzle solving in each chapter is perhaps my favorite part of the game. It's a great game.
Tetris.
Tetris is a visual puzzle. I first played it when I was a child. I think I was good at the game for my age. With some of my favorite games, such as Paper Mario or Resident Evil, the puzzle solving is one of my favorite parts of the game. With Tetris, the entire game is a visual puzzle. And it's one of my favorite games. In Tetris, there are 7 pieces with different shapes. For each piece, the shape is composed of 4 square blocks. 10 of these small square blocks will fit per row. The pieces fall one at a time at a certain speed. The game is to fit the pieces together so that it creates a row of 10 square blocks with no gaps. When this is accomplished, the row disappears. A Tetris is when you create 4 rows of 10 square blocks with no gaps simultaneously. Doing this causes the 4 rows to disappear at the same time. With every 10 lines that disappear, the pieces fall at a faster rate. A skilled player can play for a longer period of time, but it gets quite difficult as the pieces fall at a very fast rate. However, the game is a lot of fun. I was reflecting on what makes this such a great game. Fortunately, for the purposes of this review, I played the game and took 3 photos. I was in the process of getting a Tetris when I took the 3 photos. The first photo was right before I made the pieces fit to get a Tetris. The second photo was right when I made the pieces fit with 4 solid rows with no gaps. The third photo was right after the 4 rows disappeared. I examined the photos one at a time. I examined the first photo, then the second photo, and then the third photo. When I looked at the third photo, where the 4 rows just disappeared, I started smiling and felt happy. To me, this is what makes Tetris a great game, making the pieces fit, causing the rows to disappear. In Tetris, as you clear more rows, the pieces fall at a faster rate. This makes the game more difficult as you play. As such, Tetris is a visual puzzle which requires quick thinking. In addition, I enjoy listening to the music as I play. It's a great game.
Persona 5 Royal.
Persona 5 is a great JRPG which came out when there was a drought for great games of the genre. Persona 5 Royal is the version of the game to play. It even lets you play in languages such as Japanese and Spanish. It's a game published by Sega. The story of the game features high school students who travel to another world via a smartphone app. There's a lot of psychology in the story of the game. For example, the first chapter is about the student's corrupt PE teacher who thinks he is a big shot at the school and is abusing his students. When the students travel to the other world, they view his cognitive distortions. The distortions are such that he is a king wearing a crown and the school has been transformed to a castle. The students defeat him in another world, which produces a change in his cognition. As a result, he has a change of heart and confesses to his crimes in the real world. The game is a large collection of stories like this. Now for the battle system. In Persona 5, you can attack and be attacked by physical attacks, gunshots, and 8 elemental attacks, such as fire and ice. Each member of the party can attack with one of these elements through a persona they obtained. Most enemies in the game have an elemental weakness. When they are attacked with the element they are weak to, they are knocked down. The game is to knock all the enemies down, then use an all-out attack on all the enemies. What makes the protagonist special is he can wield multiple personas. As a result, he can attack with more than one elemental attack. In addition, the protagonist can obtain new personas through various means, such as negotiating with shadows. He can fuse these personas to get new personas with new skills. This is where a lot of strategy of the game comes in. For example, in the first chapter of the game, I had to strategically fuse a persona which contained a skill which a difficult enemy was weak to. There are a large number of other things which make the game great. For example, the voice acting is top-notch. Also, there's a lot of non-voice text which is fascinating to read. For example, there are interesting things teachers say at school and interactions with confidants which are very fun to read. When exploring dungeons, you are not just running and fighting. There are interesting puzzles to solve which break up the monotony. In addition, the visuals are stunning and compelling. Also, the music in the game is spectacular. It's a fantastic game.